everybody. Welcome to Marriage Sanctified. We are Tim and Janie, and this is episode 4.
Yes.
And we're hoping that you've been joining us for episodes 1 through 3.
Right.
But today we're going to talk about studying your spouse.
Yes.
Because it is such a powerful marriage strengthening tool.
Man.
I know it's something we use a lot.
Yeah, it's, you know what, studying your spouse is awesome. You know, the more you know about your spouse, the better you're going to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
it's definitely a lifelong journey.
So the inspiration behind this came from when Janie and I were on a walk last week inside the North Georgia mountains here. Beautiful. But the track that we were walking around was rocky. It was a lot of stumps, muddy, and everything from raining. So,
a lot of trip hazards.
Yeah.
From my perspective.
And of course, if you know my wife, she's very clumsy.
Yes.
You know, she will admit that.
Yes.
So as we're walking, we're going down this one hill, and I realized I looked down and I had my wife's hand. And I was like, well, when did that happen?
Yeah.
I didn't know. You know what I mean? Something that came naturally to me because I know how clumsy she is. So it automatically just happened. So I had her hand to help her going down the hill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then going back up some hills and back down some other hills. You know what I mean? But it was awesome knowing that I just automatically had her hand.
Yeah.
I didn't have to say, hey, babe, let me have your hand or anything. It just came naturally. So I think it's really awesome because it tells me that I'm actually studying you.
Yeah, I think it's funny because you brought that up.
Yeah.
You said, I just realized that I'm holding your hand. And I said, yeah, and I just realized I'm holding your hand back. Like, when did that happen?
Right.
So we're so used to each other and our needs for each other. And that comes from studying each other.
It does.
That those things just seem to come completely naturally.
It does, yeah.
So our viewers and our listeners probably want to know, why is it so important to study your spouse?
Yeah.
So we came up with 3 things. Number 1 is that it produces wisdom.
Yes.
And number 2, that it produces emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
And number 3, that it definitely leads to healthier conflict or
Yes.
even less conflict.
Yeah. And, and wisdom, the first one, wisdom, is taught a lot in the Bible, especially
in the whole book of Proverbs
is about wisdom.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get any more than that. I mean, that's a lot of wisdom right there.
That's true. That's true. In fact, if you don't mind, I'll read a Bible verse.
Ahead.
It's Proverbs 4:7, and it says, "The beginning of wisdom is this, to get wisdom.
Yeah.
And though it costs all you have, get understanding." So right there, we're being told that wisdom is very important, and no matter what it costs you, it's important to have that knowledge, that wisdom.
That's good.
So
that's awesome.
I think for wisdom, it's important to know, important to make sure you don't get stuck in the trap of believing that your spouse today is the same as they were the day you got married.
They change. Spouses change.
Yeah. Like we go through different seasons.
Right.
So we also go through changes in our habits and our likes and our dislikes. All those things change. So I think it's also important to know that we won't always know everything about our spouse.
No.
Right? Because a lot of us keep stuff inside.
Right. If you don't ask, that's another thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to ask.
Yeah. And well, even sometimes I just don't say stuff. Like sometimes I know it's here, but I don't verbalize it. So maybe there's a certain habit or a certain preference that I have that I haven't bothered to tell you,
That's
so
true.
that's another reason why I think it's important to have that wisdom and to get that wisdom.
It is. Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay. So for our listeners, what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom?
Well, knowledge, of course, would be like research, reading, learning the facts.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Where wisdom would be applying the knowledge in a beneficial way.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's more than just knowing your spouse's favorite color or their favorite meal.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think also with wisdom, it's being able to discern a situation, size up a situation, just having that discernment, being able to determine. You said the facts, but what's relevant in the situation, the relevant facts.
Right.
If I could read a Bible verse.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Proverbs 15:14 says, "The discerning heart seeks knowledge, but the mouth of a fool feeds on folly." So right there, it's telling us, have that discerning heart, seek that knowledge.
Right.
So I love the Proverbs.
Yeah, that's it. Wisdom also produces more understanding of your spouse.
That's true.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, so that's another thing you got to look at too.
Yeah, when you have understanding, you can have empathy, and you can have all those other attributes that you need to have to help them out.
Yeah.
Also, to me, I think that with wisdom, it's taking that knowledge and putting it into practice. Like it's not just in your heart, but it's actually acting upon it.
Yes, I
Does that
agree.
make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know. I just felt like I needed to add that in there.
It does. I mean, you have to know something. You have to know it in order for you to apply it.
Right, exactly.
If you don't get the wisdom from God, how are you going to apply it to your marriage, which He wants you to be happy in your marriage? So you have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the next thing we came up with is that by studying our spouses, we can have better emotional intimacy.
Yeah, I mean, that would be being emotionally connected and supported.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Understanding what happens inside your spouse.
Yeah, that's true.
That's probably a big one.
Yeah, like why they're doing what they're doing, why they're saying what they're saying, why they're acting what they're acting. I mean, the more emotionally connected we are, the more we have that understanding of what makes you tick. You know, even myself, what makes me tick.
Right.
So I think that's really good.
That's awesome.
I think also with emotional intimacy, it's knowing all your fears. You know, also like what motivates you, what your desires are. And I think the biggest thing with emotional intimacy is the vulnerability.
Right.
So being able to be vulnerable with each other is huge, I think.
It is.
And if we have that emotional connection, you know, I can do that. I mean, did you have a Bible verse to talk about with that? I think it was
I do. Actually, it's James. Let me get my glasses on here. I'm getting old, so James 5:16. It says, "Therefore, confess your sins, to teach others and pray for each other, so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective."
Yeah, I mean, right there. Yeah. I think there's no other way that there's a few other ways, but one of the biggest ways we can be vulnerable with our spouses is by being open and confessing our sins. Yeah. If I have sin in my life, whether it concerns you, has to deal with you, or something private I'm dealing with, if I can confess that to you, I'm being vulnerable because I'm opening myself up to judgment. Yeah. What are you going to think of me? Are you going to think something different? So I think, but when you have that level of emotional intimacy that's really high and really strong, you can do that. I can easily come to you and say, I'm dealing with this struggle, or, I said something to somebody I shouldn't have, so I sinned, and, I can talk to you about it. So I love that.
That's that open communication that we have.
Sure.
Studying your spouse is also about communicating properly.
It sure is. It sure is. And I think for me too, and I don't know if this is just from a woman's perspective, but I know it is for me, that emotional intimacy, it gives me that safety within our marriage and that comfort. And so I just think that we get that from studying each other. It just enhances that level of intimacy that we want to have emotionally.
I agree. Wow, that's awesome. I think I have one more verse here. What was it? Colossians 3:19. It says, "Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them."
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Exactly.
That's where I get that. If you're emotionally really connected to me, you're going to know what upsets me and what doesn't. Yes. And I think right there, don't be harsh. Like harshness can be hard, and that can make me not feel as safe or as comfortable, in our marriage and stuff. So I think the third thing as to why we should study our spouse is because it will produce either less conflict or at least healthier conflict within the marriage. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think that when you study your spouse, you serve them better.
Yeah, you learn their likes and their dislikes, so you can obviously love and serve them better.
So naturally, you will have less conflict. For
sure. And I think also by studying you, it takes the focus off of me and puts the focus outward and onto you. So right there, by studying you, I'm becoming less selfish. Because I'm focusing on you. I'm basically trying to have your well-being in the forefront instead of my own.
That's true. Well,
I think also if I know you and I'm learning you and I'm studying you, I know what situations can make you tense. Let's just say, or what, it might lead to maybe short-temperedness. Yeah. It has nothing at all to do with me. But if I know that about you and I've studied you and I know, let's just say you're in traffic on the highway, it might be a little tense for you. If you get a little, short-tempered or you have a quick answer, you're really quiet or something, it has nothing to do with me. That's just you in that situation. So I'm more apt to overlook something like that. If you get short with me or the kids, I'm going to overlook that because I understand you and I understand, okay, he's just in a tense situation. This is nothing personal.
I mean, you can look at that as well as like being a nonverbal cue. You know what I mean?
True.
Because maybe I'm driving, I'm stressed, and I'm not saying anything, but you
right.
know me.
Right.
So you know that, okay, this bothers him. This is one of his...
that's a very good point.
You know what I mean? So, it can be a nonverbal as well.
Yeah, we should totally study our nonverbal cues of our spouse, not just what they're saying, what they're doing.
Right. And so if you see me one day, I don't say anything, and I walk out and I slam the door.
Yeah.
You're going to look and go, okay, what was that about?
Yeah.
That's not Tim's actual behavior, normal behavior.
And we don't have to have a conflict about it.
Right, we don't.
So there, again, less conflict. Yep. I think that if we really know each other and we're really studying each other, and the more we get to know each other, it leaves room for less miscommunication. Yeah. So if I know you and you know me and I kind of know your use of certain words, or whatever, I just know that we're not going to have a miscommunication about it because I just know you that well. Yeah. So that, again, if you have less miscommunication, you'll have less conflict, or at least healthier conflict.
Yeah, that's true. So when it comes to studying your spouse, we talked about the why.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the how we study your spouse.
Right. Yeah. So we came up with a few things. Right.
So I know one thing is that the love language. The five love languages. If you haven't heard that by Dr. Chapman in his book, it's awesome. I mean,
is. It's an eye-opener. It's like that aha moment in marriage. Right. At least for me it was. I know when we heard about the love languages and we actually did a Bible study on it, we had a devotional and stuff.
It was awesome.
Videos and everything. When we learned more and more about that, I was like, wait a minute, I have been loving you the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like the wrong way. I thought I was expressing love in a way that would speak your language, but I wasn't. So once I learned what they were, man, that was huge.
Yeah, so you have the acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, gifts, and physical touch.
Yep. So, and what's really cool about that is, if anybody were to ever question, is any of this biblical? Right. It totally is, because think about what Jesus did. He did all of those.
All five of them easy.
Yeah.
The first one would be acts of service.
Right.
He went to the cross for us.
That's the biggest act of service there. He shed his
blood for us.
It's also the biggest gift too.
Yeah. There you go. That's true. You know what I mean? And if you talk about quality time, he was with his disciples all the time. He spent that time with them to get to know them, for him to get to know them, to get to know him.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So,
and he was showing his love to them by taking the time to get to know them. So he was definitely expressing love that way. What else did he do?
Words of affirmation.
Yeah.
I mean, he tells everybody, you know what I mean?
Well, the woman at the well.
What
he said about John the Baptist, like there was nobody better than him or something to that effect in Matthew, I think it was. But he always had a kind, affirming word. The guy on the mat, pick up your mat and go and walk. It seemed like he was always giving out those words of affirmation.
I love the calm words of Jesus. You know what I mean?
Agree.
How they help us.
I agree.
How about physical touch?
Oh, I mean, he touched Lazarus. He came back to life. I mean, think of all the people he healed.
Made a blind man see again.
Exactly.
There's just so all this fits into God's word.
Yeah,
I
agree.
What I mean? And what Jesus has done for us. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And if Jesus is displaying that to us and exemplifying that for us, then that's something we should be doing within our marriage too, as it is with anything else in the Bible. You can apply it to your marriage and into your relationship with your spouse. I think another way, other than the love languages, would be to ask questions, like specifically of your spouse.
If you don't know something, I mean, you have to learn their habits. You have to learn their do's and don'ts. You have to learn the whys and nots.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to do these things in order to study your spouse.
Yeah, and if you're uncomfortable going to your spouse, you can always go to God. I mean, you can ask God for clarity in any situation.
I would go to God no matter what.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if something you don't know with your spouse, go to God with it and say, God, how do I ask my wife this question?
Yeah.
In the correct way, not with being defensive, not,
accusing
him or her. Yeah. You know what I mean? You go in there with the correct words, and I'm telling you, I mean, I used to say words to you back in the day, pre-Christian, that I would just have that rude sense of and ask you, and you were like, well, why did you say it like that for?
Yeah.
And then I'd stop and think and go, well, that was harsh.
And you can also ask God to prepare your spouse's heart
Right.
to receive what you're saying in the manner that you're trying to say it. So
I like that.
Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome.
What's another way that we study our spouses?
Let's see.
I think if you don't mind me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the main way is through observation.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like an incredible observer compared to me.
From my career,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My job, one of my jobs was observing people.
Yeah.
And so I can tell you anything about somebody just on my profession.
Yeah.
So I took that and I get to observe you.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
True.
So like you said, you told me one time, you say, well, I don't know what kind of car the neighbor drives.
Right.
But you knew I would.
Yes.
Just because that's me.
Yeah, I almost think that I don't even make it a point to be that observant because I sort of rely on you because you are. And, to be honest, and you may relate with me, it's been a struggle for me, the observing part. I know that like you learned sometimes you know more about me than I know about myself, to be honest, because you really take that time. But for me, it's been a struggle to observe, like you were talking about earlier, my face would be in the book, or in my laptop instead of looking around. But so to me, I've had to be very intentional to observe you. And then even more so, even if I do watch you and learn something, I often have trouble verbalizing that or putting that into action. So let's just say I see you doing something. I should give you that word of affirmation on it.
Right.
But I don't always do it. So to me, that's also been a struggle. So I think there's always room for improvement.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
There always will be.
Yeah, I know for me there certainly is.
I mean, but from your transformation from what you used to be to where you're at now is just, I can see it because I've gotten to know you, know you and study you. So, like you just said, an next door neighbor, you might today his because now you're more observant.
Well, now I'm looking around everywhere and I see the importance of it.
Right.
Before I really didn't.
Right.
And I see the importance of just being, observant, not just within our marriage, but just,
Think about this. What we're doing by studying each other, what impact, it has other impacts, believe it or not. So think about if you have children and they see mom and dad studying each other, in their own sense or whatever, however old they are, but they're seeing it. So go back to my inspiration of studying your spouse, go back to the walk. We went again, a few days later with my son, and same thing, same track that we're walking, and all of a sudden my wife and my son are walking together in front of me, and next thing you know, they're going down a hill. I see my son grab your hand, and I went, "Why did he grab your hand?" Well, because he sees me do it with you, so
you didn't have to tell him.
I didn't have to tell him.
He just naturally knew.
It just rubbed right off of him. You know what I mean? So
it's true.
So when people, friends, children, they see you guys studying each other, and you know everything about your spouse, it's only going to help the rest, your children, if you have children, you know what I mean, or other friends.
That trickle effect,
it does.
that contagious effect. I agree with that. I think another way that we can study each other is just simply knowing each other's communication style.
Yeah.
Are you direct communicator or indirect communicator?
Right.
Are you passive, aggressive, assertive?
Right.
We all have our styles and our ways of communicating. I think it's super important to learn that because that will help you in your communication.
Right.
That's going to help you with the conflict, with your emotional intimacy, basically wisdom, everything we've talked about. I think it's important to really pay attention to your spouse's communication style.
I have one more verse here.
Okay.
James 1:5, and it says, if any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you.
That's so good.
Isn't that good?
What a promise from God to have that.
Yeah.
So we know if we feel like we're really stuck.
Right.
I'm talking to you, I can't get an understanding or some kind of clarity.
Yeah.
I know for sure I can go to God and He's going to help me with that.
He's going to help you give that clarity.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome.
Okay, babe. So I guess the question I have for you is, what have you seen or how have you seen me change the most since we were married till now? I have an idea of what your answer is going to be.
What's your idea?
I think it's going to be that I'm more observant.
Yeah.
But we just kind of touched on that.
We kind of touched on that. Yeah, I've seen you transform from focused, as focused on something and not seeing the whole picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you have that what they used to call
tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision. Yeah, so I couldn't say it. Sorry. Tunnel vision on your computer. And there's this whole outside world out there that God has given us that you just missed.
I was oblivious to it.
Yeah, and you know what I mean? So from that time up until now, a totally transformation on that part. You know what I mean? Now you're observing everything. You know what I mean? So it's nice to see you smile and hum, when you're, music and while we're driving down the road. You know what I mean? But it's nice. You know what I mean? Because you're actually enjoying what God gave you now rather than focusing on one thing. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
What about me?
For you?
Yeah.
I would say the biggest change has been, don't take this the wrong way.
No, it's fine.
I don't mean this in a bad way. But basically, I think you used to see things from your perspective.
Oh, yeah. I was selfish.
Yeah, I think it wasn't that. It was just mostly that you would see things, okay, how is this going to benefit Tim? Right. How is this good for me? And it wasn't,
Score for me, check for me.
I mean, you were always a wonderful provider, an encourager. You've always been just an awesome husband, Tim. So this is not in any way
one for the guys.
But I think in the beginning, you were used to being on your own. So you saw things, how's it going to benefit you, your perspective. Right. And now I've watched you just turn into this man of God. I mean, this biblical husband, this biblical father, biblical friend to others, this caring, empathetic person. You don't, when you do stuff now, I don't see you looking to see where you benefit. I see you looking to see where we all benefit, or we're like how you and I together as a team benefit from it. So I have to say, for me, because I've studied you, and you really are a lot different than you were in the beginning. Just in that spiritual growth and that leadership. Mostly, I've just watched you just become this amazing leader in our home. Amazing.
Well, I can tell you why. It's all because of God.
Yeah.
Yes. God threw out his rope. I just grabbed on and I held on, and he took off, and I'm following him, all the way.
Yeah.
So especially with my spouse too.
Yeah.
I want to study her. I want to know everything about you. And if I don't know, I'm going to find out about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
ask those questions.
So that would be my thing for you guys, is that study your spouse hard. Mm-hmm. If you don't know something, if you don't know what color or what's her favorite food, ask her. Little things to big things.
The type of coffee creamer she likes.
That's it.
Even the little details like that. Because
details.
Then you can turn everyday little gestures within your relationship into full expressions of love.
You can. That's awesome. And I tell you what, that's what we do. And we have little conflict, or if we do even have conflict from it, we know how to handle it because I studied her, she studies me, and we're able to come together. So that's what you guys got to do.
I agree. So just a few more tips, some things you can do. Consider it your homework.
All right, there you go. Homework, guys.
Take the 5 love languages quiz. Yeah. You can just go online, type in 5 love languages quiz. It'll come up. It's free. You can take that to learn about yourself, about your spouse, about your children, or basically anybody that you have a relationship with that you want to learn how to love them better.
Yeah, do it together. Take it separately, but then come together and see what, your acts of service or gifts or whatever is more important to you. You know what I mean? And share it, because that's the thing of coming together. Yeah. Studying your spouse. You want to know her? Know what her love language is.
And then apply.
Or his or her, sorry.
Apply what you learn. Right. That's the other thing. We take the knowledge and then we get the wisdom by applying it. So apply what we've learned. Yeah. And I think the other thing, you and I did this in prepping for this episode. We went to truity.com and there you can take all kinds of personality tests. There's a bunch of them. And they're free.
Yeah, I've never seen some of the answers where actually I kind of learned some new stuff about you.
Oh, I did too.
And I was like,
about you.
Wow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a wow factor. So
that's another thing you can do. What else can we do?
The other thing would be, if those haven't seen, it's an older movie called Fireproof.
Oh yeah. Kirk Cameron. Right?
Kirk Cameron. What an awesome movie! But the thing that they have in there is the 40-day love dare.
Right.
And if you haven't done that, you have to do that. I mean, you can watch the movie first. They tell you how to do it in the movie.
Yeah.
But then once you get it, let me tell you something. That changes. And I won't give you the scoop on the movie.
Yeah, but watch the movie though.
But it continue. If you do the challenge and it's not working right away, keep doing it, because it does work.
For sure. That 40-day challenge definitely teches you how to be intentional with studying your spouse, learning everything you can about them, and then doing stuff that they're going to love. Yeah. So that's a great recommendation there.
Hey, so that's it for this session. We thank you so much for joining us. I had a great time talking with you, like always.
I love you.
Yeah, love you too, babe. So, hey, hope you all join us next week, and have a great week, and God bless.
God bless.
Bye.